Welcome to Celebrating Heirloom Recipes with Anna Francese Gass. Her presentation is based largely on her book, Heirloom Kitchen, Heritage Recipes and Family Stories from the Tables of Immigrant Women, which we have available for purchase in our gift shop. We felt this presentation was timely following the holidays, which tend to be full of food, family, and friends. Anna grew up in a small Rhode Island town before moving to New York City to attend college. After a stint in the corporate world, she realized to be truly happy, she needed to spend her time in the kitchen instead of an office cubicle. She quit her fast-paced sales job and enrolled in the French Culinary Institute to follow her dream of professional cooking. Soon thereafter, she found her niche in test kitchens, assisted on successful cookbooks, and worked on a number of cooking TV shows, as well as Martha Stewart Living, Omnimedia, and Whole Foods. I'd like to welcome Anna Francese Gass.
Hey everybody, good night. My name is Anna. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm so excited to be here with you tonight and tell you all about my book and teach you how to make, I have to say, a fan favorite in this cookbook, my mom's beautiful and delicious meatballs. So this is my book, Heirloom Kitchen. As Kim mentioned, I went around the country cooking with immigrant grandmothers. I wanted to get those recipes they had in their head and their hearts, but that they'd never written down. I'm sure your grandmother was always a pinch of this and a dash of that. Well, I made those pinches into teaspoons and those handfuls into cups. So that's what I did here. There's over 35 women chronicled in this book, all of their immigration stories. And if you check the book out, you will also see that I have each woman's picture and their immigration stories. So starting with my mom, Gina, who immigrated from Italy, I have her photo, I have her story, and then of course, I have her, now I can say it, world famous meatballs. Aside from Italy though, I traveled all over the world via the United States immigration. So there is Asia, Europe, the Middle East, everything is in here, whether you're in the mood for Chinese dumplings or maybe you'd like to try some German goulash. It's all here for you to try. And these are recipe tested, but they're grandma's love and special touch as far as the recipes go. So tonight, the museum has asked me to make my mother's meatballs. There are many, many Italians in the New Haven area, in Connecticut, and all over the country. And each Italian has a recipe for meatballs. And of course, each one of us believe our mother makes the best. But I'm here to say, I think that my moms are the best. I'd love you to try them and let me know. That being said, one way I definitely want to let you know is how to reach me. I am very readily available on Instagram at Anna F. Gass. And you can DM me, message me, anything you'd like. My email is on there as well. So if you buy the book and you try a recipe and you have a question or just even a comment or some feedback, please feel free to reach out to me. Let's get started with the cooking. So like I said, we're going to be making, oops, that's the spanakopita. I should show that delicious recipe that we have there. But today we're making my mom's meatballs. So let's get started with that. So in the interest of time, I already made tomato sauce. Now, why did I do that? For a couple of reasons. I am from Calabria. My grandmother and many, many of her friends and family close by do not fry their meatballs. They actually poach them in the tomato sauce. They never get fried in oil. So whenever you're making my mom's meatballs, you have to have a pot of sauce on. So the recipe is actually Gina's brodo di mamma, which is my mom's sauce, e polpette, the meatballs. So what you do is you actually make both together. They're delicious together. It makes lots and lots of sauce, this recipe, and you can have it for freezing and for other recipes in days to come. So just really quick, as far as the tomato sauce, my mom's special trick with that is that she poaches garlic and basil in olive oil. Then the garlic and the basil are strained out. They're put in the pot with the tomatoes and it's gently cooked for a few hours. And it's fantastic sauce. It's very simple. Like I said, you're talking about 5 or 6 ingredients if you include the salt and the pepper, and it's a really, really delicious sauce. Once you have that big pot of sauce going, you make your meatballs, and the meatballs actually also help flavor that sauce. So let's go with the meatballs. Now, to start my mom's meatballs, and this is very traditional for Italian meatballs, she uses 3 different meats. We have beef, pork, and veal. I call it the holy trinity of meatballs. I love it. I think each one come to the game and bring their special skills. So your beef is there. It adds some great flavor and sturdiness to your meatball. Your pork is there for your fat and your flavor. And then, of course, the veal adds a delicious tenderness. I get a question a lot. What if I don't have one of them? What if I only have beef? Absolutely 100%. You can definitely make this with all beef and pork. I wouldn't do all veal. That would be kind of a crumbly fall apart situation, but you don't have to have all 3. I just think that makes for the best. So those are going to go in a nice big bowl. Okay. And then we're going to add what we need to savor, really bring out the flavor of the meat, right? So we're going to do 1 tablespoon of salt. Get that in there. And 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper. Once we get that in there, we're also going to add some fresh parsley. So we have those 2 things that have gone in. And these are really just savoring up, really bringing out the natural flavor of those meats. So that's a tablespoon of parsley. Now, we need some binder. We need some things that are going to make this stick together. So the first thing I'm going to add is 2 beaten eggs. Get that in there. And I'm going to add some pecorino romano. Pecorino romano is my mom's absolute favorite cheese. You can absolutely sub Parmigiano Reggiano if you want to, but we use the pecorino. So that's going to go in. Now, I'm going to do something that might surprise you, but I'm telling you, this is what makes my mom's meatballs the best. It's her secret ingredient. And her secret ingredient is tomato sauce. Yes, you heard me correctly. My mom puts a little bit of tomato sauce in the meatballs. That might sound strange, but it actually helps create a very, very moist and savory meatball. So throwing in some of my mom's tomato sauce. Now, I always have my mom's tomato sauce on hand. If you don't have tomato sauce on hand, you can use the stuff from the jar. There are some high quality sauces in the jar. I don't use them, but if that's the way you go, feel free to throw that in there. It does work. But of course, I really love using my mom's sauce. So that goes
Anna.
in. Yes.
Somebody is asking, how many pounds of meat did you start with for those specific measurements?
Oh, it's a half a pound of each. I'm so sorry. Yes, it's a half a pound of pork, half a pound of beef, and half a pound of veal. Now we're going to add the breadcrumb. This is our binder. Other than the egg, this is what's really going to help it hold together. However, this is my thoughts on breadcrumb. I only use a cup, which for this amount of meat is not going to seem like a lot. And when you're putting the meatballs together, they're going to seem very, very soft to you. But remember, we are not frying these meatballs. If we were frying the meatballs, we would need them to be a lot sturdier. The problem is the more bread you add, the harder they get. So if you've ever been to an Italian restaurant and like the meatball, you feel like it could bounce on the floor, it's so tough, it's because they've added too much bread. Trust me, these are going to be soft, but all you have to do is get them into the sauce. They're going to tighten up in the sauce, but then they're going to melt in your mouth. Okay, now we have our breadcrumb in. My mom uses Progresso. That's her favorite brand, but any seasoned breadcrumb will do. I've also made it with homemade breadcrumbs. So if you like to have your own breadcrumbs, you can do that as well. And that's 1 cup. And now I'm going to add half a cup of whole milk. the milk softens up the breadcrumb and it helps kind of also bind everything together. So what I'm going to do now, as you can see, is very, very lightly blend these together. And I will tell you, my mom does this with her hands, but for tidiness and for, cooking class capabilities, I use a nice big spoon and I just break up that meat because I obviously want everything to be really well blended. I want everything to taste really good. And I don't want one bite to be bread and another bite to be cheese. So take your time, get it all mixed up. If you have any questions right now, don't feel that you need to wait to the end. Kim, as you saw, she'll yell them out to me if there's something along the way that you did not catch.
We have a few questions.
Sure.
Somebody's asking for the amounts for the cheese and sauce.
Okay, so the sauce is 1 cup of your tomato sauce. And then for the cheese, it's 1 cup of the cheese. So 1 cup, 1 cup. And then
And
the milk
someone else is asking about soaking the bread in crumbs. How is the milk helpful?
Well, some people will soak their breadcrumbs ahead of time. I just kind of pour it on top. It's a little bit faster and it does the same thing. The bread is quickly absorbing that milk and it's, fluffing up the meatball. I do not feel that you need to soak the bread ahead of time. I know people do that. It's just not something I've ever had to do. And I don't think just throwing it on top. I do try to have those two things happen last though, right? So the breadcrumb goes on top and I pour the milk right on top of it. So it hits it first and it does everything it needs to do. Don't need to add that extra step.
I'm surprised that I am not hearing about garlic.
Yeah. So, the thing is, if you remember, my mom's tomato sauce does have olive oil that she infuses with garlic. And then a little bit of that tomato sauce is going in there. So you're getting that garlic flavor without the chunks of garlic. I actually very much dislike when I eat a meatball and I get a bite of garlic. Like I don't want to taste garlic when I'm eating a meatball. I love the essence in there, but I actually don't like the meatball to have garlic. But you know what? This is what I tell everyone. A recipe is a guide. Do what makes you happy. If you love these meatballs, but you can't see it without garlic, then by all means, chop up some garlic and throw it in there. It's going to be great. Whatever makes you happy. All right, so this is looking really good. And I'll just give you a quick look. Once I get a little bit more mixed up and all together. And as Kim was saying, I went to culinary school in New York City. I went to the French Culinary Institute. So I actually learned how to cook French classic technique recipes. But it was funny because in one of our semesters, we were in charge of cooking family meal. We were in charge of actually cooking the dinner for all the students because every night we would stop for dinner and one section of the school was in charge of cooking it. And it taught us how to cook for large amounts of people. So in case you were in culinary school and you wanted to become a caterer, that section was really tailored to you. But the fun thing about that section of my schooling was that we were allowed to make whatever we wanted for family meal, as long as it was something that could be, made in bulk. Well, guess what I made? I made my mom's meatballs. So I served, I want to say 500 people, my mom's meatballs, and they were such a big hit. All my very, very, very French instructors, all the chefs loved them. And it was really funny going to the French Culinary Institute, which was, the dean was Jacques Pepin, and making a very, very classic Italian dish that has been in my family for generations. All right, here we go. Perfectly mixed together. As you can see, the parsley throughout, all the meats have combined. You barely even notice that sauce is in there or the cheese. Everything has mixed up in there. Now, this is the fun part. I take a baking sheet for a couple of reasons. One, it helps me parse out my meatballs, but two, sometimes I will make meatballs even if I'm not serving them tonight. I'll make them, I'll put them on a baking sheet, and I'll throw them in the freezer. These freeze beautifully. And let me tell you something. Remember I told you my mom doesn't fry her meatballs. You can take these straight from the freezer, frozen, and throw them in hot sauce, and they will be ready in an hour. So you can actually create a meal that you eat a week from now, 2 weeks from now, or because this recipe does actually make 16 to 18 meatballs, you can have half right now and freeze the other half. And that's something that I do a lot too. Okay, now I want to talk about this. It's an ice cream scoop, and I absolutely love using it. Don't worry, I don't use this for ice cream. This is just for meatballs. But the reason I use an ice cream scoop is I don't want a whole bunch of different shaped meatballs. And if I use this, they all end up uniform, exactly the same size. And most importantly, other than the fact that they look good, they cook at the same rate. Make little meatballs and big meatballs, they're not going to cook at the same rate. And because they're in the sauce, you're not looking at them, they're in the sauce cooking. You want to make sure you know that they're cooking right. So I take this, get your hands a little messy now. I just kind of scrape it off so that it's full, just like you would with ice cream. And then I roll it in my hands, just like that. And on the board it goes. So I just keep rolling them up. And another thing that you can do with these meatballs that my mother does is if you want to get a very small scoop and make mini meatballs, you can do that. And my mother will make mini meatballs and then she'll make Italian wedding soup with them. If you don't know what Italian wedding soup is, it's a chicken broth soup with usually some sort of vegetables and maybe a little pasta and little tiny mini meatballs. So these are great for that. And the other thing that you can do with these meatballs is you can bake them. Let's say you just don't want to have spaghetti tonight. You want to have mashed potatoes. You can take these, you can put them on this baking sheet, just like I'm doing now. Bake them in the oven, 350 degrees for about 20 minutes. Give them a check, depending on the size that you make them. And once they start running clear, you have baked meatballs and they're delicious. My daughter, one of my daughters, actually prefers the meatballs that way. She doesn't like them as much in the sauce. She likes them baked. It looks like we have a pretty robust chat going on. We have more questions?
We have someone who's wondering about if there's a link for your recipe.
Well, it's in my cookbook. So I don't know. The museum didn't provide, I don't think the museum provided the recipe. So, but if you have any questions, I can definitely write it down. And then, like I said, it is in my cookbook as well.
If people go to your Instagram, do you ever post recipes and links there?
I do. I don't usually post the recipes in my cookbook, but if you're just looking for like dinner inspiration or just some fun, different fun things that I'm cooking in my kitchen, I do have TV appearances. So if it's something that I'm going to be making on TV, I'll post the recipe. This month, I am going to be on Rachel Ray, Good Morning America, and Access Hollywood. So those will all be on my Instagram and also the recipes that I'm going to be making on those shows. I'm actually going to be making the spanakopita from my recipe from my book on Rachel Ray. All right, so as you can see, this recipe goes really, really quick, Can set aside a morning, roll out a whole bunch of meatballs, and depending on the size of your family, this feeds a lot. I mean, I'll tell you, my husband will have, if I make pasta and a salad, he'll usually have 3 meatballs. So my kids will have 1 or 2 apiece. So half a recipe for a family of 5 is usually plenty, you know, because it's 1 course. And so 1 recipe for me, 1 I make, the other one goes in the freezer. So get my hands dirty once, I got dinner twice. And I love recipes like that. All right, so we're almost done here. And like I said, what I'll do is I'll put these in the freezer just like this. I'll put a little cling wrap on top and I'll freeze them. Once they're hard, don't leave them like that. Once, like after an hour, once they're nice and hard, take them out of the freezer and get a big gallon freezer bag and pop them in the freezer bag. You just don't want to do it straight into the freezer bag because then the meatballs will get all smushed. So I let them freeze on the baking sheet because that helps them keep their integrity. And then you just put them in the freezer bag after the fact. Just like when I'm making chocolate chip cookies, same thing.
We have some people wondering when you're on TV, when you're on Rachel Ray.
So Rachel Ray is getting taped tomorrow, but unfortunately, because of COVID, everything is being pre-taped right now. So I don't have a date on that, but Good Morning America, I will be on the 22nd. So it's Saturday the 22nd. I'll be on Good Morning America. I'm going to be making a really delicious pizza cake. So a very fun creation of mine. So you can check out the pizza cake on my Instagram. And if you watch me on GMA, you can see me make it with the hosts. Still don't know if I'm going to be on Zoom or going in. That is remains to be seen, but we'll figure it out. We have to keep rolling with these crazy times, right?
We have someone who missed the amount of milk and whether or not it was whole milk or half cup of milk.
So it's half a cup of whole milk, but in a pinch, sometimes if I have 2%, I'll throw in 2% and it's fine. But the recipe does call for half a cup of whole milk. Let me just run through the ingredients one more time for everybody. So we had half a pound of pork, half a pound of beef, and half a pound of veal. I did 1 tablespoon of parsley, 1 tablespoon kosher salt, 1 teaspoon fresh ground pepper. I did 2 large eggs beaten, 1 cup of pecorino romano cheese, parmigiano is fine to substitute, 1 cup of breadcrumb, half a cup of whole milk, and half a cup of my mom's tomato sauce. So there you go. So these are our meatballs. As you can see, they're gorgeous. You could pop these in the freezer right now, or you could cook them. So we are going to cook them. What I do have though for you is 1 meatball that I do have in there that I already cooked because I want you to see what it looks like when it comes out. And also it flavored the sauce that I have going. So I have a big pot of my mom's sauce back here bubbling away. And when you throw your meatballs in, you do want to make sure that you have a nice rolling, I would say a vigorous simmer. You don't want it boiling up, but you definitely want your sauce to be nice and hot when you throw those meatballs in. I'm actually going to turn mine down. Okay. Here we have our beautiful meatball. You grab my fork. Just want to show this to you. All right. Look at that. It holds up. It's tender. Okay. But when I cut into it, and this is to me, the success and the state, what proves that this is a fantastic meatball. As soon as you put your fork in, it breaks immediately in 2. See that? No hockey pucks here. This is super, super moist and so yummy. All right. And that was cooking for about an hour. The other fabulous thing about my mom's meatballs, in about 30 minutes, they are actually done. So if you are starving and you need to eat, these will be ready to eat in about half an hour. In an hour, they are super tender, super moist, super delicious. And if you want to take them out and heat them back up the next day, you can do that as well. So it's one of those recipes that comes together very quickly and doesn't take that long to cook. You can also, like I said, cook them from frozen. In that scenario, I would absolutely cook it for an hour. And if you want to bake them, like I said, 25, 30 minutes, and you have nice, round, delicious brown little meatballs. So go back here, move this out of my way. And all I'm going to do is drop these right in the sauce. They're just going to go in. I'm not going to cook these all. Like I said, my family doesn't usually eat a whole amount of them. So these are going to go in. What I do though is I just kind of shimmy the pot a little bit. As you can see, I go like this. Every time I put one in, my grandmother, that was her method. She shimmied the pot, and by shimmying the pot, it moves them around so that you can add more. You absolutely don't want to start rooting at them with a spoon because they are very delicate right now and they will break. So in this state, you are going to want to be a little bit more ginger with them. All right, so these are in. I'm going to do another shimmy just to make sure that they're in and they're covered and they're not sticking together. And there you have it. That's it. That's my mom's meatballs. They're so easy to make. You probably have ordered them out in a restaurant a million times. Think that there's some magical thing about them, but it's actually quite a simple recipe and a very rustic recipe, but also a recipe that you can customize. Like I said, don't be afraid to put in some garlic if you want, or to omit something if you need to. You know, if you just don't like parsley, you absolutely can omit that. I'm happy for you to make them your own if you prefer all beef. If you don't eat pork, many people don't eat pork. The recipe does not need pork. So if that is a dietary or religious concern for you, you can omit the pork. Just make sure that you increase half amount of either your veal or your beef.
We have somebody asking about it simmering, a gentle simmer.
Very gentle. Yes. Yes. Nice gentle simmer.
Someone else is asking if you're using a cast iron enameled Dutch oven for the sauce.
I am, absolutely. So this is a Staub. I have to tell you, I use my Dutch oven for so many things. I even bake bread in a Dutch oven. Dutch ovens, I think, this one I think is a 4-quart just because I had a smaller amount tonight. But if I'm making a nice big pot of sauce and I'm making the entire recipe, get yourself a 6-quart Dutch oven. It's the best. If you don't have a Dutch oven, just use your biggest pot. Like I said, I'm making half the recipe, so only need the 4-quart. But if I'm making the whole amount, because I'm cooking for a whole bunch of people, I'll use a 6-quart. Dutch ovens, I just think, are a really good investment for someone that wants to cook. The other thing I'll tell you is this about these meatballs. If I haven't already told you so many amazing things, I have made them in the slow cooker. So if you need to head off to work in the morning, get all your tomato sauce ingredients in the slow cooker, right from the book, which is, you know, my mom's tomato sauce, the basil, all that stuff. Look up the recipe or your favorite tomato sauce recipe, dump it all in the slow cooker, throw those meatballs in raw, like I told you, just the way my mother does it, in the sauce, make sure they're covered, put it on low, 8 hours. You will come home, your house will smell like Italy, and you will be eating dinner as fast as you can cook some pasta.
We have somebody just for fun wants to know how many pounds of meat did you use to make the meatballs for 500 people?
Oh my gosh. You know, I don't remember. I absolutely don't remember. And I didn't do it alone. I had all my classmates with me. And, you know, even though we were cooking for 500, because we served everything buffet, I don't know that I had to make a meatball for each person, which may have caused some arguments amongst people once they ran out. But that's a funny question. And no, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Somebody else would love to hear more about other recipes, like which ones are your very favorites? And also, how did you find all the other grandmothers?
That's a great, those are two great questions. So as far as my favorite recipes in the book, it's so funny. I feel like everyone asks me this, but I really can't answer that because it's an international cookbook. My favorite recipe each day is different because it's really what I'm in the mood for. Just like at night, sometimes you're in the mood for Chinese food, or you might want to order in some Italian or some Thai food or some Indian food. It's kind of that way with my cookbook, right? Because it's every country. So, if I'm really in the mood for Italian food, I might make my mom's meatballs, or I also cooked with this other one, Maria, who taught me how to make these incredibly delicious eggplant fritters. So that's really great. If I'm in the mood for something sweet, I actually have a recipe for homemade Nutella. That's a favorite. But then of course, if I want to do something different, I might head off to Greece and make some spanakopita, which is, the Greek pie with the spinach in the middle. I have this really beautiful Danish from Serbia, which has cheese in it. Then if I want to get a little bit more adventurous, then I might head over to Korea and make some of their delicious marinated bulgogi, which is, their grilled meats that they make with that really great marinade. There's Japan in here. There's you can head over to, hold on, Haiti if you like spicy food. I have this really yummy cashew chicken from Haiti. You'll love that. If you like Scotch bonnets, if you're into spice, that's fantastic. And then another really yummy one, if you want to get something really fun for a party, make some hummus. That's always a lot of fun to make. There's just really a lot of fun things in this book, and it's hard to pick a favorite. I love them all. Like my children, I love them all the same. As far as meeting the women, so I started with my mom, and then I actually cooked with the woman from Greece, Nellie, because I'm friends with her son. And then I kind of just word of mouth bounced from kitchen to kitchen. So because I let everyone know on social media that I was doing this project, people started recommending women that they knew that were fantastic cooks that, oh, you have to cook with my mom, or, oh, you have to cook with my mom's best friend. She's from Iran and she makes the best ... So I really bounced around kitchens that way. I went all over the country, started in the Northeast. I ended up cooking with women from Florida, from Michigan, from San Francisco, all over the globe, all over the United States. And all these women immigrated to the United States from, a homeland somewhere far away.
I was curious too about what inspired you. Was it getting to know more about your mother's family recipes, and then you branched out to other families?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I started with my mom because, I went to culinary school. I was a classically trained chef. I was cooking in kitchens. I was working for Martha Stewart, recipe testing every day. And I just kind of had this moment when I realized I didn't know how to make any of my mother's recipes because, of course, as a very traditional Italian mother, anytime in the mood for any of her things, she made it for us. But I realized, and this is how the name of the book came about, that these were our true family heirlooms. My mom's recipes are the things I want to pass down to my children. So I need to know how to make them. So it started out as a family project. And then I had my second aha moment when I realized that there were so many people in my same position where, their mothers came from a different country. English is their second language, and they do all the cooking and they never wrote anything down. And these recipes were, in peril. They were there was a chance that these recipes were going to be lost. So that's when I put the word out to friends and family and said, look, this is a service I want to provide. I get to have an amazing recipe. I get to learn something authentic. And I promise you, I'm going to give you a standardized recipe that your family can share. So I started as the Nona Project. I did it for 5 years, and then it became a cookbook published by HarperCollins, and that's how Heirloom Kitchen was really born.
We have several people that are asking about your cookbook, and I have put information in the chat for them to purchase through the New Haven Museum. We have your cookbook in our gift shop, and so they can call us for that. We have a Helen who says, greetings from Toronto. There's nothing better than poached meatballs. I started following Anna for this very reason. I bought her cookbook immediately and just love it.
Oh, thank you, Helen. Helen and I correspond on Instagram all the time. She is very, very kind to me, and I do know she has made my mom's meatballs many times. She always tags me when she does, and it warms my heart. Please, like Helen, who I'm so glad was able to join this Zoom tonight. If you do make anything from my cookbook, please tag me. It really makes me feel whole and feel like I really did do something. The cookbook came out in 2019, but then of course, because of the pandemic, everything just kind of shut down on me. So reaching out and seeing that people really did enjoy the book and are still buying the book and loving the book, really for me is so important and so just something that I cherish. So thank you so much, Helen, and thank you for your comment tonight. I'm so glad you're here.
So I'd like to hear more about you being on these shows.
So, it's so funny. When my cookbook first came out, you obviously do a whole bunch of publicity for the cookbook. This was pre-pandemic. So I was able to land a spot on Food Network's The Kitchen. They replay my episode every Mother's Day because I was able to bring my mom and 5 women from my cookbook. We all went to the studio. I got to cook with Sunny Anderson and Jeffrey Zakarian. It was so much fun. And I really just kind of caught the TV bug. I had so much fun that day. And after that, I started getting booked on morning shows. I did all the local Connecticut morning news, and then moved on to Good Morning America, which I'm now on regularly. I think I've been on 5 or 6 times. And most recently, Access Hollywood. I got to cook with Mario Lopez and Kit Hoover. I'm going back to LA at the end of the month to cook with them again. And Good Morning America, I at least once or twice a month, they give me a call and have been having me on. So I enjoy it. It's so much fun. And again, it helps me get my word out about my book.
Is that your favorite part of this passion? Just getting to meet people?
It really is. Because, when you write a book, you're sitting in an office and then you're going to your kitchen and testing. And it's a very, I don't want to say lonely task, but it's just you and the material. And you don't know how it's going to be received. You don't know if anyone's going to be interested. So when it gets out there, when I first had my book tour, and I was lucky enough to be able to tour the country and meet people that had bought my book or that their book resonated with them, it's really rewarding. And at the end of the day, we're all children of immigrants. So everyone has a story. My grandmother from here, my great-grandmother from there, and they would share their stories with me and why their grandmother was so important to them. And the recipes that they still make, even though their great-grandmother or their grandmother is no longer with us. So yes, it's definitely been rewarding. I'm working on a second book. It's a completely different concept, but Heirloom Kitchen will always, to me, be lightning in a bottle because I feel like it was a fun idea that really took off and started as something fun and just a pastime and became something in print.
We have somebody asking what your new book is about.
Oh, well, that's top secret. We have to see what happens. I'll come back to the New Haven Museum for that.
Absolutely. So we have somebody who says they did some quick math, and assuming that you got 16 meatballs from 1.5 pounds of the meat, she thinks approximately 47 pounds of meat to get Enough to the 500 people?
Okay, well, I'm very impressed that you did the math because I always say I'm a great cook, I'm a terrible mathematician, but I have something to throw at you. We made them mini. So it was actually 30 meatballs. It wasn't 16. So we made them smaller. So get that calculator back out.
We have somebody who is asking about the photos of your book, and I just wanted to mention that the photographs are by Andrew Scrivani. I don't know if
Yes.
you'd like to speak to that.
I mean, I can brag about this because it's not, I didn't do it. The photography in this book is phenomenal. Andrew is the food photographer for the New York Times. And I was very lucky to grab him for my book. He not only shot all this amazing photography, but he shot all the women. And that takes quite a talent to be able to shoot both food and women. This is Fetty. I think she just celebrated her 88th birthday. She still calls and texts me. She calls me her long lost grandmother. And I just love how regal he made them all look. And that's Sheila. She's from Panama. She lives in Florida. She's phenomenal. And I just also included old pictures. The women actually gave me old pictures. They gave me mementos. They gave me little things that they brought from the old country that meant something to them. So that got photographed as well. So, when I say that you're not going to find another, that's the dumpling tutorial. So you could see how to make dumplings. You're not going to find another book like this on the market. And I say, this is for the foodie in your life, but it's also for the historian in your life or the people that just love reading the stories of others. And I really found so much out of this. I learned so much about myself, my family, but also about people in general. And one thing I always say is I started in the kitchen cooking with my mom, but I went all over the country cooking with other women. And every woman I stood next to, I felt like I was standing next to my mom because the sentiment was the same. They love their kids. They came to this country for a better life. They gave that to their children. Their children went off to be lawyers, doctors, whatever. So their American dreams were a success, and also carrying that dream on to their kids was also a success. So it was so nice to see that it not only happened for me and my family, but all these families across the country.
How fortunate that you were able to travel all over the world prior to the pandemic
Yes.
to gather all of those recipes.
Yes, this book could not happen today. It just couldn't, unfortunately, with how safe we're all trying to be, jumping on planes and going all over the country to meet these women, many of them elderly. It would not happen. So I do feel like it happened exactly when it could. And the other thing I really just want to tell everybody before we wrap up tonight is if you do have a mother or a grandmother that's a great cook and doesn't write anything down, please get them in the kitchen, cook with them, hear their stories, and write the recipes down because you just never know. And you'd never want these recipes to be lost. Your mom doesn't have to be an immigrant. She might just make a really great apple pie. Whatever it is, I had so many people when I was on tour say to me, I wish I had found your book before my mother passed away because it would have gotten me to get her in the kitchen. And I never did it and I lost the chance. So I say this on every Zoom. Find that person in your life that makes that fantastic dish that you can't live without and learn how to make it. It'll be in your family for generations to come.
We have Helen who says, you're right when you mentioned most grandmothers did not measure. Her grandmother couldn't read or write, and she wanted to learn how to make her fennel bread. And it took months of watching her measure out a handful of this and a pinch of that before she could replicate her recipe.
Yeah, but you put the time in, and also you learned how to make the recipe, but you also got some special memories and time with her. So I think that's a win-win.
Is that the name of your Nona project, going off all over the world with other Nonas?
What's that? The name of it?
Was that your
Oh,
Nona
yeah.
project?
It originally started as the Nona Project, yes.
Yeah. So I guess I don't see any other questions, but I have one last question.
All right, last question from the moderator. She deserves to ask a question.
About going on these television shows. How exactly do you choose what you're going to cook?
So usually they'll pick it. So for
Okay.
example, yeah, so Rachel Ray got my book. The producers went through it. They picked the recipe that they wanted. And then the same thing with Good Morning America. They went on my Instagram. I made this pizza cake. They thought it looked really cool. So I'm going to go on and make the pizza cake.
I always wondered about that. You know,
yeah, the producers usually pick what they want.
Yeah. And so we'll have to wait and see when you're on these shows, what you actually prepare.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I have to say,
do you have any last words for us?
I do. I always have words. I'm Italian. I always have stuff to say. No, I just want to thank everyone for coming. I know time is precious. So many people are so zoomed out. So I hope I made it entertaining enough as we meet each other through these screens. I enjoyed my time. I'm honored that you came on and listened to my story. Check out my book. Hope you purchase it. If not, keep cooking anyway. Enjoy. Like I said, at Anna F. Gass. That's how you find me on Instagram. Message me, DM me, tag me if you make something. And I just want to wish everybody a happy and healthy 2022. Let's look forward to getting in person again.
And I just wanted to say, I loved the format. I feel like I'm sitting in your kitchen watching a friend cook. So it was just a wonderful, wonderful presentation. My only regret is I certainly would like to be tasting.
I know.
those meatballs.
I don't have taste-o-vision or smell-o-vision. If someone ever comes up with those, they'll be very rich. All right, guys. Thank you so much again. This was wonderful. Thank you, New Haven Museum, for finding me and thinking of me. I'm honored. And let's do this again sometime. Ciao, ciao.
I'd just like to, before we close, let everyone know that our presentation tonight was made possible with lead support from the UI Lighting Up the Arts. And I invite everyone to please join us next month on Thursday, February 10th at 6 p.m. for the Reign of Black Governors with Karima Lewis.
Bye, everybody.
And good luck on your TV shows.
Thank you, Kim. Good night, everybody.